is a place where I bought my eyeglasses the last 2 times, and this is a fabulous fabulous cheese store that I can no longer shop at because of the stairs. And just down here is a butcher shop I used to go to all the time, and also it has one stair, so those are no longer. This is still wheelchair accessible, but they're closed for renovations. But in the summertime they have a patio which is accessible, but it's very tight, so to get a wheelchair like in between the tables is really difficult.
How would they be if you asked them to move things around?
I mean, I'm sure if you're willing to wait, maybe until a table cleared and they were willing to move tables around, and they'd probably do it for you, but I mean, I've certainly been at places before where it was obvious they weren't happy doing that.
So how did it feel to have to ask them to do that?
I feel bad having to ask and inconvenience them. And, it's not a pleasant experience when you're with your friends to have, the wait staff roll their eyes at you and, act like it's a real inconvenience to find a way to seat you.
Right.
So I'd rather just avoid the situation altogether. These are all the places that I came with friends for breakfast, and we had brunch here on the weekends, and it's a place where we all got together and gossiped, and where we spent a lot of time. So that's another place where we can't go. And of course, all these places are either upstairs or downstairs. This is the bar where we always used to hang out. On weekends we would meet here on a Friday night before we would go dancing to have a few beers. And it's totally wheelchair accessible. There's just it's impossible. And other than that, I don't think there's a single place where you could go, a bar where you could go to have drinks on Church Street that's wheelchair accessible.
Right.
I can't think of it.
And how are the bathrooms once you get in there, Jim? If you were to get in there?
Well, if I was to get in, you couldn't get into the washrooms. They're not made for a wheelchair. You could hardly fit a person in them. So to get a wheelchair in, like that's the other thing. Like restaurants in the neighborhood, even like the Keg Mansion, you'd think a huge chain like that would for sure be wheelchair accessible, but it's not.
Right. It sounds like you're in a sense isolated a little bit.
Well, I mean, it's isolating in the sense that you do feel shut out, that you can't, you feel shut out of this neighborhood, that you can't find any place that you can go to. But I guess you could look at it, in another sense, it forces you to get out and find other places to go, maybe not in this neighborhood, but you just have to broaden your horizons a bit and try and find other places. But it's certainly not the same as being in this neighborhood.
And it's not the same because?
Just because the vibe isn't the same on a Saturday night or a Friday night. And, most of my friends live in this neighborhood, so to get them to all pick up and come out for drinks someplace that's blocks and blocks away, and then come back to dance here. Nobody wants to do that, so it just doesn't happen. When I would go out to the dance clubs, there used to be a guy that would always come out to the clubs in a wheelchair, and I used to even see him on the dance floor, which I thought was amazing.
Yeah.
Mind you, it wasn't the same kind of wheelchair that I have. I think maybe friends of his maybe could have lifted it up and brought it inside. But I used to think it was amazing that he got onto the dance floor, and you just don't see it anymore. You don't see any of that anymore. One thing that I have here is a person I met at a meeting I went to at City Hall once makes these stickers that they say, oops, a person in a wheelchair tried to use this today. And I stick these any place where I go where like even if I'm getting on the subway and the elevator is out of order, or I go someplace where there's steps or a door, a push button door that's out of order and doesn't work, I just write a note and I stick one of these on, and I write a little note saying, that a person in a wheelchair tried to use this today, and I make a note saying that, there's lots of places or lots of people in wheelchairs that probably feel the same way I do. So for example, a place like this that has a step to get in, I would just stick one of these on the door. I actually spoke to the manager about how easy it would be to build a ramp, a small wooden ramp to let wheelchair people in. But the issue is the washroom. If they did let you in on the first floor to dine, all the washrooms are located on the second floor.
Right.
And they don't have an elevator.
Right.
So, Pride Day for me was something that was almost bigger than Christmas. I mean, my friends would come from out of town, and we'd go dancing every night. We'd be, at the beer gardens along the street, or we used to get tickets to the dance parties that, at the clubs, like, we used to go fly and go dancing, and all of that's impossible now. It's just, it's taken all the joy out of it for me, and it's not only is it physically impossible for me to get down and be involved in the things I used to do. Emotionally, it's so hard for me not to be able to get in there with my friends and be with them. It's easier for me just to stay away. It's like having to miss Christmas. It's really difficult.
Because this is a possible venue where you could hang out.
It's a bit tight space-wise, so I don't know.
I'll check.
There's an actual washroom on the main floor right there, male and female, but wheelchair accessible. It's actually quite big. It's quite large space.
Perfect.
Yeah. It's wheelchair accessible. Washroom at the far end.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just the entrance there then is a bit tight to get in. The 519, as they call it, it's a community center on Church Street. It's always been a place where you could come and get information about things to do in the neighborhood. And I remember when I first came out when I was like 16 years old, they had a lesbian and gay youth group in Toronto. And I came here, this is the first time I ever came downtown to meet other gay people. They had a group here, so it's always been a place where you could go and get information about things that are going on in the community. It hasn't always been wheelchair friendly. It's a bit difficult to get in the one door, but recently they did a major renovation here that has made it, I think it's totally wheelchair accessible now. Yeah.
It's accessible.
Oh yeah, look at that. That's really nice. See, if every place was like this, life would be so much easier if every place had a washroom like that.